Cool. I'm mic'd up, so yeah, that's fine. Yeah, first of all, great to be here. I came up from London this morning and quite an early train, arrived at the beautiful station and was just greeted by fresh air, sunshine, hills. I'm from a small village in Scotland, which it actually reminds me of, so this is really nice as well. As was just mentioned, I'm going to talk about an initiative about the Open Source Circular Economy Days. I'm not going to go into detail now. I'll kind of go through it as I go along. But really, it's looking at about how open source, mixed with really kind of sustainability, can really move forward some of the solutions and the products and the systems that are kind of hindering this at the moment. What we looked at was really that we wanted something to stimulate debate and collaboration, take a hands-on, practical approach, creating and sharing, and also make sure it was a lasting, evolving space, because I don't know if people have been involved with hackathons or other types of things like this, or these great days that generate loads of ideas and enthusiasm, but then they disappear somewhere, and what happens to them, or they go into a big company and they've kind of taken everyone's ideas with them. So we wanted to, how can we, when these ideas are made and the people and the connections come together, how can we build on it and continue on it and feed back as well, which you'll see as a running theme through this presentation. First of all, I'm going to be open with you as well. I'm pretty nervous to be here. I'm not an open source expert. I feel a bit out of space around this, and I think all of you have amazing knowledge and experience in lots of these areas that I'll be going through. As was introduced, my background is a product design engineer, so mechanical design and engineering originally. A friend of mine, Marcella Turenne, drew this, I am questioning. Talented, amazing designer. So that's me doing what I try to do as well. I started working in Philips originally, which you would probably see as not so open source, doing lots of vacuum cleaners, kettles, other types of small domestic appliances, but always focusing on sustainability there. For my I'm proud. I didn't get any patents. I never generated any IP, which I think is interesting because you see a lot of other big companies, or when you come out of university and you're pushed into these organizations, it's all about how much IP can you generate. I think if you go on websites like Dyson, that's how they advertise to work for them. We create 1,001 patents a year, so that's interesting insight on the side. After working very much, I suppose, on product sustainability and technology, I was interested and saw the connections and the themes that actually Catherine was talking about this morning. How does it link with social and the people side? Because actually the best solution isn't always a thing. It's maybe a policy, it's a behavior change, it's a conversation to be had as well. So I moved to London and I worked in a number of NGOs, Waste Watch, Keep Britain Tidy. You've seen the tidy men on your bins, litter, but they also do eco schools, beach care, river care, waterside care, green flag parks and beaches. So a huge range of kind of environmental, social, on-the-ground programs using design thinking and policy that way. And I've got involved with a number of things, but I suppose I went from tech design to very social behavior, and I had to find something in between. So I kind of went on my own and started working on quite a few different projects. The London Circular Jam, which is a kind of hackathon kind of thing. I'm working with, I think Hannah Stewart was here the other day, so I'm doing some projects with Sustain at the RCA on future makerspaces, and recently, working with the Central Research Laboratory, which is a hardware startup incubator, so looking at that gap between the makers and the marketplace, but also in Kickstarter campaigns and crowdfunding campaigns, what you'll often see is that they'll probably rush to get the contract manufactured fast in China. So there's something that's great about crowdfunding and enabling people, smaller organizations, to make their stuff, but also how can you build in kind of those environmental considerations as well. And of course, open source. Okay, the next thing is, I don't want to just be talking for you. I think it says on the agenda 40 minutes I'm on for, and I really hope that I'm not going to be talking. If I end up talking that long, just tell me and stop. But I really would like to to kind of share stories with you and have a bit of collaboration. I'm going to get you to kind of choose some directions or topics to focus on us a bit. But that's also a bit what the Open Source Circular Economy Days are about. There isn't a figurehead, there isn't one person or group of people leading it. We want to disperse the knowledge and take it forward that way. And also, I think I was a bit scared to also come here because quite often with the types of projects that you do, you're like, well, this is the conclusion and these are my outcomes. And I have to be honest, this was a volunteer project, so we kind of all collapsed and slept a bit afterwards, after a lot of work and consideration, and then also had to go and do some jobs that could pay us a bit of money to get us going. So we're only just kind of setting back and seeing what came out of it. But I think that's also the challenge is in coming to these events, it helps to bring these kind of things together. So it's a big thank you, actually, for making me bring all these ideas together. And also that's the same idea with the initiative. It's open and evolving. A lot of the problems we have with design, particularly around sustainability or a lot of the practice we're used to doing is we only want to show it when it's nice and glossy, that it's finished and that's what we've produced, and you don't show the back end and the messy and how it was orchestrated as well. So I think it's good that this is an evolving presentation, and this is the first showing of it as well. So all of that is why exactly I should be here and talking about these things. It's crossing different sectors. It's talking about open source, about environmental. It's also people who aren't from that sector, and how can we bring these silos together with these great insights to create real positive impact as well. So who knows what the circular economy is here? 1, 2. Okay, there's a few. It's good to get a feel for that. I mean, most of all, it's kind of an alternative to what we talk about, the current economy, or a linear economy, where if you look at most businesses, it's about extraction. I think Hugo's going to be talking probably about some of this a bit later as well. But where you're making a product, most businesses, it's about selling the product, the user has it, and it ends up somewhere, hopefully recycled. But quite often that end of life, whether it's a fast-moving consumer product and it's going to be a piece of packaging and thrown away that same day, to an electronics product, there's not that much ownership of that end of the system there as well. I just wanted to put this in. This is, I also did a project recently at Reading Festival on tent waste. So I think this sums up a bit of our society, or this problem at the moment. Everyone's left the festival. And yeah, so if you want a tent, that's where to get them. But unfortunately, there's so much there that they can't handle them. And a lot of it will be wasted as well. And it's not just tents, it's everything as well. So I think that it kind of brings, the types of products we're making now and what our society are doing with them. So when we move to a circular economy, there's some great work going on both here and across the world as well. This is from the Great Recovery, and this is starting to think about alternative business models where as a manufacturer or different players in this system or supply chain, you can think about either reuse or recycling. It goes a bit back to the old waste hierarchy with the reduce, reuse, recycle that people learn in school, but unfortunately we haven't got much further than recycle at the moment, and we're not even doing that well. So when we think about reducing consumption or the amount of materials, building in models of rental systems instead, we're not that far, and people like to own things generally as well. So in the circular economy, it's really thinking about these alternative models that help to ultimately reduce or not even use the resources that our world is running out of, but also, I suppose, slow the flow of them as populations are growing and things like this. Open source? Who knows what open source is? So I hope I don't. I've got a video of Lars and Sam, who I actually worked in the Open Source Circular Economy Days with, but I I don't think I probably need to show it. What I can say is that everything I show you is online and completely open and available, because a lot of information was generated. But I suppose what we were really looking at it from that circular economy aspect is if you're building a circular economy and you need to understand what's in that system, all those different flows, if you're a waste disposal manager, wouldn't it be easier if you knew how things were made more openly, because then you could think about how to dispose of it? Wouldn't it be easier if if a manufacturer stops making a part for a vacuum cleaner, that then if that part's broken, that they opened the design and other people could build it and make it instead as well. So it's those transparencies of the system and there's different models of collaboration, which I think that open source in its wider sense, not in terms of purely software, but open design, open data, open, all of those types of things can put towards sustainability and really moving it forward. And it is that idea that a lot of the system right now is top-down, it's in-house, it's not very clear what's going on. Whether if we move to more a kind of transparent, collaborative approach, which open source also encourages, that things would be a lot easier. So what actually am I talking about now, and what actually happened? We decided to do a kind of a global hackathon, but also look at how to make it more lasting and work on challenges that were presented by local communities. We had an open online platform to host challenges and connect openly, also engaging people that actually they could help us organising it as well and suggesting how we, well, actually join in and doing it, which was great. And then also, the important part was balancing that online, offline, and the different ways that people work and enjoy and collaborate together to try and reach out to a wider audience, and we did it in London as well. This is the team at the start. So Sam, he's an open source camera, he runs Camera Libre, which is open source documentary filmmaker. He was just at POC 21, which was a large open source sustainability design week for 5 weeks in a castle in France, where lots of different organizations had put forward prototypes and ideas that then they got real good design advice and business models and designers at hand to help move that forward. Tim's from France. Sharon's, she's in Delft now. She was in London. She moved to Delft while we were doing this. That was quite difficult. Lots going on there as well. And then Lars is also in Berlin and looks a lot in open source. So we kind of came together and thought, oh, it'd be nice if in France and Berlin, and at least in London, we did something that we could collaborate and think about some of these challenges and cross-fertilize our different experiences. Both me and Sharon come from much more, I suppose, traditional sustainability, eco-design backgrounds, so we learned a lot along the way, and vice versa, them on the environment. But we didn't want to do it all, so we just put together like basic foundations of some of the structure, some of the principles, and how would we go out and engage people, what was it about as well. And by the end, I would call, we have quite a large team now. We went out and 33 cities took part in the end in 25 countries. There's Barbara in Bergen, Chennai, in India, some of the London, Hazim in Cairo, so, and Cindy in Helsinki. So these people aren't just random organisers, somebody put an event. They're actually collaborators, and they've built into the event with us and moved it forward in such a way that we would have never expected. And actually, friends, Sylvia on the end in Indianapolis is amazing in manufacturing technology and circular economy. Didn't know anything about open source, but put in an event in Indianapolis and wants to laugh at San Francisco and Washington next year because she was there before them as well. But it's nice, it's personal, and what's online is all of their stories. We did a live I'll talk about it a bit later. But we didn't really script anything. We had open kind of Google Hangouts. It's all online and recorded in that way. So how did we structure it? And I suppose in using the technology in that sense. We've got main website, but what we did was also have subpages for each country, a community platform, Discourse, an open source one, and it's open online, Google Hangouts, global reporting, YouTube videos, OwnCloud, Etherpad, Gdot. I have to say also, for me, I learned a lot of these different programs, and sometimes when you're used to working in a system and then something else moves, suddenly I didn't quite get using OwnCloud in time and downloading all the stuff there. And I think that's that fine balance when you want to attract a lot of, or increase diversity in the people engaging either in open source or the circular economy, is how far can you go either way, especially if you want to build it and grow it and make people not feel too stressed and out of place. I was stressed a bit even myself with some of the different tools that I was getting to grips with as well. So the nice thing that we did about the own pages, and I think sometimes different from global events, is we said, well, here's your page. Do what you like with it, really. and trust them, I suppose. And what you see is we had a brilliant designer in Berlin, Jenny Otteler, and she created like the overall OSCE Days and a little Berlin logo and a little London one. And what you see is that inspired everyone else. We didn't say keep it in brands, do this, do that. And they took it their own way. And I think that's a really nice way of letting the individuality and the local context stand out that way. And also, you could see them almost going, oh, they've done that, Singapore's done that, I might add that, or bouncing ideas of how the cities were even doing their own like sub-page as well, and organizing their events. I mean, this one's nice. This is Barcelona, so it's in Catalan, Spanish, and English as well, to get all the different languages. And we said, okay, you can use your own language, because ultimately, if you say you've got to all do it in English, you'll suddenly cut off a lot of people from being able to engage in it as well. As I said, we did open forum and organization, which for me was quite difficult, being like a kind of process engineering kind of thing. You like to have a big plan and everything kind of clearly laid out. But I really got used to doing it. Kind of, you just have to think a bit clearer, set out your tasks in a nice way so others can jump in and build on it themselves, and thinking about how to break up the organization. And then you would see other countries kind of doing similar things or being able to find their way about it. So it was almost self-organization in that respect. And so what we used this platform for was in advance, both organizational, but posting the challenges. So actually people could engage a long time and have some meetups in advance or post the challenges. And we had a few linkages. I think somebody saw from Helsinki that we were doing something on circular makerspaces and how to make sustainable hubs like that. And she was a professor in sustainable makerspaces, so posted her, an open kind of project that she'd been doing on that for us in advance of the challenge. So you start with a running leap as well. I got a lot of not worrying what you looked like, doing all these Google Hangouts and just being more open and authentic and speaking with people. We did Google Hangouts, so people didn't just have to type to each other, and that they knew that at a time and a place you could log on, and we would have Indianapolis talking with Cairo, talking with South Africa, and sharing what they were doing and how they were going about it. So it's finding these enabling platforms for different people to get the right support to be able to put on events or on topics that perhaps they wouldn't usually be open to do as well. And we've also got some expert YouTube videos where we did reach out to maybe more official experts, but not the usual suspects. We just didn't want, I think a lot of us had become a bit jaded with conferences and other things where the same people were talking about kind of the same things or the same example that they did 10 years ago or 9, and you're like, come on, have you not moved up? And what was interesting was finding these kind of, all these experts in those areas who were citizen experts in their topics as well. And I think this is where, by the power of interactivity, let's see how this. So we've got a number of countries, and I just want to give a flavour of some different people talking, rather than me. We've got Barcelona, Eindhoven, Bergen, Berlin, Singapore, Indianapolis, Cairo. What, anyone have a key country or one that you quite fancy listening to? Singapore, cool. Let's see how they do. So what we did...
I just switched this on so that people in the cafe can come and join and also follow. Hi.
Okay, hello. So, welcome to the next call we have with our Singapore team. And Rafa is there to tell us a little bit about what's been going on there. Maybe you can introduce yourself and let us know your background and why you've decided to join OSCE Days.
Sure. So my name is Veera, and I'm from Sustainable Living Lab, which is basically a social enterprise that's located in Singapore. We basically try and combine ideas of sustainability together with the maker movement. So we combine that together. I'm right now speaking for my workshop, which basically, I can show that to you in just a bit. This is a makerspace, essentially. So a lot of equipment, tools, and all that over here.
And in the event there in Singapore, what kind of backgrounds do people have?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What kind of backgrounds do people have?
Right.
Where interested.
So I'm just going to keep that on background a bit. So this was actually global reporting, that over a core 4 days of the kind of the main event where people were doing design challenges or doing it however way that they wanted to do it, we had set times where we plugged into each country and just did a kind of a live reporting feed. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But what I can say is that when you watch these as well, what really comes across is just the unscriptedness, which was very refreshing. The kind of the authenticity and just little insights into what's going on in the rest of the world, but also connecting you to actually very other similar people in the rest of the world in a different way. So they're very uplifting and a lot of different interesting insights in that as well. And the next thing that I'd quickly like to show is we had a few kind of more official experts that might be interesting to hear a bit of it on, although it mightn't take too long. We had David Lee, who's from Shenzhen in China, and he talked about what the open source movement there is doing and development between the different factories, which I think is really interesting from the perspective that that's actually where most of our electronics products are made at the moment, but actually there's a big move and support from the Chinese government into hacker makerspaces and looking at alternative ways of technology in some of these open source areas there. Kyle Beans from iFixit, he supported it also with some funding for this actually, who talks about the repairability and closed off a lot of the manufacturers going on in that respect. I don't know any poems to kind of read in between moments off by heart. You can start the other bit in between. Yeah, so I think that shows the kind of the diversity that we like to get people engaging and really knowing each other, that by the end, actually, I think everyone who was involved could almost contact somebody in a different city, or if you're in Cairo, like Hassim will probably help you out and show you around and where to go and link you to places that you'd be interested to see. This was nice. I was just putting these photos together the other day, and that, again, the offline event, bringing people together. What you see is that, like, we automatically go around into circles, which is really nice, and something called open source circular economy days, that almost, everything from around the world, you have these circles of collaborations, but also we're reaching out to a lot of people and sharing everything that they were doing at the end as well. So it was hacks and jams and different types of workshops that they were all able to do. In Helsinki, they hacked Monopoly, what would like a circular economy Monopoly board look like, because I think when you think about it, you're like, yeah, that is a bit about capitalism, really, isn't it? Building hotels and all of these things as well. As I said, Shenzhen, they were looking into Gongbang and Gongmo, which is the different forms of open source. I'm like, oh God, I could tell you anything, couldn't I? Open source electronic kind of the software, but then also the hardware, the casing around it as well. Watch his talk about that. It's really interesting. Johannesburg and Cape Town, there's got an amazing webinar where a lady called Claire Yanish talked about biomimicry, and there's so many interesting similarities and thinking about nature, we're really young. Nature's been doing stuff for a really long time, and these networks that it's created has developed as well. So it's going to take a time for us to get our systems right, and the linear one is probably not the right one. There's not much in nature going like that. Bogota was all about food. As well, so looking at sustainability around the food systems and things. So real diversity in projects, but then some linkages also in between. In London, we looked at 4 main ones: circular makerspaces that I mentioned before, which is also linked to a Royal College of Art project. Trust is not a waste. That was looking at the recycling system, and was with a local charity called the Rubbish Diet, and they look at how to slim your bins. And one of the problems is that a lot of people don't really trust the recycling system. Once you've put it in there, where does it go? It looks very much like it goes in the same kind of truck in the same direction as the landfill stuff as well. So, what is really happening, and how do I know that my products and things are being recycled? So they were looking at how open data and different open source technology could enable people to understand more open energy life cycles. So that's with Open Energy Monitor, who are based in Wales. And Tristan and Glenn, they're really interested in looking, they're an inherently sustainable product, looking at how to reduce energy. So they also wanted to understand how the manufacturing and the making and making that product, how much the environmental impact was, particularly in embodied energy. And they found out some really interesting stuff around actually the amount of market, I have to get this right, most of the markets in the UK, about 70% to 80%, they've only got 5% in Australia, yet shipping or flying that 5% to Australia was more than the complete environmental impact of whole UK market of making that product. So when you start to look through that lens, how does that change how they might want to change their systems or the business surrounding the products, or should they just say, sorry, Australia, you'll have to make your own there as well. So we were supporting these different organizations to build in sustainability into maybe their technology practices as well. And the other one was looking around wearable technology, which is amazing, but also could be a big danger area in terms of embedding and putting things into systems that previously might not have had technology in them. So when you're thinking about those end-of-life scenarios, if you're going to have it in your clothes, how does that change the clothing system around that as well? So the great thing is we held it in the Fab Lab, so we had people there to talk to straight away about sustainable design in the Fab Lab. For the open energy, for the Trust is not a waste, we had a great team there who included local authority experts on on sustainability, as well as the wide view of perspectives. So they really took something that I think the charity has been coming to the conclusions for about 8 years or so, and they took a weekend to kind of hammer them all down to show maybe what an app would take somebody through, as well as like, oh, can I recycle this? No. Oh, well, actually, you can lobby your local government. Which, it's very simple things, but often there's not these little kind of insights to say, well, you can actually make a change, rather than if you usually you look and it's like, no, you can't recycle this stuff. And as I said, yeah, he's got some really interesting documentation and is, I suppose, a trusted messenger in the open source world to also bring some of these considerations. I mean, we talk about how many mobile phones are in a drawer, how many Arduino boards, or how many Raspberry Pis are in people's drawers as well. But these are electronic products with high rare earth materials as well. So how can we think about these systems in that way? And just a really quick example of one of the projects I love, the French. The French can run these things pretty well. We thought he was completely disorganized and didn't know what he was going to do. But actually, they took over a small village, a group of them, and mapped it. They engaged the local mayor. They went on the local radio. They identified all the problems. And then really over the weekend worked with the local community really doing it. So I think it was really interesting. I think in London we had a bit of a kind of, oh, we're used to this, we need to get official kind of challenges from these people, and then we'll do it this way. So, but this flexible way that I think this city mapping was really nice, and he's actually going to be kind of writing that out, and they have documented that, but also more formalizing that into a way to take it forwards. So, and now, well, I think what we're looking at now is at the type of, did I miss a thing there? Did it go fast? Oh yeah, there we go. I was like, oh, that went fast. Because I said this is evolving and we don't have any conclusions. What we're looking at, or the open observations that we've had so far, or recommendations, I suppose, of involving different diversity and citizens in a project like this, is to create a flexible, adaptive, kind of common framework. But don't try to make it perfect, because actually, once you start using it with them, then you'll learn, and that'll be how you make it better. So really, it's about enabling and supporting, empowering in a variety of forms. So being sensitive to the different people and like the diversity that you want to engage. I think you can see, well, from the next photo, we had, women, men, all ages, all nationalities, from children, loads of different backgrounds, from artists to technology to engineers, to local government as well, which was great. So how can you create the different ways that these people can come in and not be too scared? And it's providing a personal, authentic, friendly space. A lot of what we do and want to do is build trust and continue to be open and transparent about how we're doing it. So now, well, I was just actually in Berlin last weekend, which is why this is all like, oh, what are we doing? Where are we going next? We really want to look at what type of organization can support this and continue to support this and remains true to its values and its integrity. I think you see a lot of things start a bit similar to this. You get a big sponsor. Where does it go, and how does it retain the kind of nice balance of professionalism and openness for people to get engaged, yet retains its voice and not become too corporate or structured as well. And that is the same with balancing the funding needs and an independent voice. So we're looking at different ways, from grants and trusts to membership models and things like that can help support it if we moved this forward. Because a lot of people, the wider team of the world now, wants to take it forward and do it again as well, and are actually continuing to do stuff on the collaborations they made. And also, we've not had the time to really go through everything that was created and share some of the insights and connect all the dots. I mean, there is A lot of that already happening where now people post something online, you can, let's talk to this person in Barcelona, they know about this, and that is happening, but there's so much, it is almost like so much data and information there. How can we make sure that we learn from it, or it finds the right home as well? And we want to build on our guidelines and principles, because I think they're very important to get right at the beginning, but we'll be doing that also with the community as well. And very importantly, also for me, who had a lot of headaches with some of the open source or new tools or online kind of software things that I was using, it is that usability and the practicality and the accessibility for other people who aren't as new and learning about how to document things in different ways as well. And yes, 2016, coming soon. It is coming. That's my talk. I'm afraid, I did actually talk quite a lot. I'm very sorry.
That's really good. Thank you, Erika. That's super.
I figured it's quite a big thing.
Wonderful. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions for Erika?
Yeah, it was just a quick question about energy and sustainability of the process. And it's like when you do something like that, the first time it's really exciting, and then you'll do it again and you'll get it right. And then after that, it becomes a bit routinized and the energy can disappear. And I don't know whether you've sort of thought about that and how you sort of take forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I would say, I think that's something that you can see we're quite mindful of, both in terms of how the sustainability and the funding, but also the people and the energy. We're looking at how to build a system where there's some sort of core team framework, but how do you keep that fresh? And people aren't allowed to stay on that core team too long. Maybe it's a co-budgeting system with projects that are put forward, or changing leadership. Well, not leadership, but semi-framework thing to keep it fresh. Because I think all of us were like, yeah, you can't keep doing it every year the same as well. But I would be really interested if there's anyone with any examples or models or kind of insight into that area, because I think it is a...
I think it's a really interesting area because I can think of lots of things that go through that process and then just sort of fizzle away. And then, because sometimes one or two people will pick up on it and polish it and smooth it, and then it becomes something else, and then somebody buys it, and then that's the end.
Yeah.
You know, but the process, the cycle of it, keeps going.
Yeah, and I think it's something like, I think that's where we feel that getting these principles and understanding with the community, all the insights that people have into that thinking is really key to hopefully stop that happening before it happens. Yeah. Brilliant.
Which is, I want to talk to you, by the way, about my project afterwards. Is that there are things which work like Linux and Firefox and so on, which do manage, in spite of getting big and getting lots of money coming in and all sorts of political traumas, like the CEO of Firefox having to quit when he said something horrible about LGBT, whatever it was. And they are continuing healthy organisations. So some people do manage to make it work. So you need some skills which aren't technical skills. You clearly need some good social skills within that organisation to make it work, but there are some really good examples.
I mean, that little network, well, I think that was Linux being built.
Yeah.
And I think it will be really interesting to possibly see if we can dig deep into organisations that we think, well, that's kind of looks like it works. How are they retaining that and keeping it going as well?
I think it would be incredibly valuable if you could find some non-command and control. I've got a social enterprise, and I would like it to have the longevity of Linux or something. At the moment, I notice we're slipping into command and control mode. It'd be nice to have worked examples organisations which go on living without having to be driven by money or a sponsor or anything other than just doing the right thing.
I mean, what we've been looking at also is maybe do less with more focus, or what have we learnt from here that is there, I think, almost within the open source circular economy, there needs to be kind of almost research and looking at those types of things to show what works in alternative models, because otherwise everyone kind of defuncts back to
or works
business
it
as
all
usual.
Or works it all out over again, which is a terrible shame. You might as well, if you say, this is another way of doing things that works, good.
Yeah, cool.
Richard. Yes. It won't record otherwise.
Looking at the tents, I was thinking about my my twins,
Yeah.
and I'm a bit recycling mad, and they think I'm absolutely mad, but I can't engage them. And I'm just wondering, have you done anything on the demographics of people you're engaging with, and if there is a gap in a new generation, I call them the CBA generation.
What does that
They
stand
can't
for?
be bothered.
Okay, cool.
And that's what they say to me when I'm explaining things. That's the common answer I get. If that is true, or is it just me imagining it, have you any thoughts on how we can get to that new generation of throw away, dispose, it doesn't work anymore, let's get a new one?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting area because, I worked in Waste Watch and Keep Britain Tidy, and we did a lot of kind of things called citizens' juries. So you spend kind of 2 days with people who don't know what they're coming in for, and then gradually learn more about the systems and the reasons behind it. So you see those kind of the trigger points that suddenly go like, oh, wow, I shouldn't put like my cigarette butts down the, what's it called, in the drain because it flows out in the sea and the fish are eating them and they've got, like that's on my plate. So it's always seeing those trigger points. I mean, that didn't look at the young age group there. I think there's a lot about almost making things, we've made things very invisible. So how do we make it more visible again? And I think technology is an interesting way that we can start to do that. We've made things invisible on the other side of the world. We used to make things much more locally, or you knew where things were manufactured and made, and then it shifted quite fast, really, in 50 or 60 or years to somewhere out of sight, out of mind. But now we have technology and different ways and different companies who are beginning to kind of disrupt the system or the status quo of that to show like more transparent supply chains. I don't know if I'm optimistic or something, but I really believe in engaging people and trying to get to those the values, learning the knowledge behind it, to kind of trigger more lasting understanding of environmental problems or systems like that. I mean, Reading Festival, their age group is, I think, 80%, so between 16 to 20. They go there after the GCSEs.
We have a mirror.
As like a party, so it's almost the extreme, extreme melting pot of it as well.
That's an eye of a whole generation to me. So that's worrying, really worrying.
Yeah. I mean, but then you get an alternative festival, like Green Man, or a different one where their ethos is something coming down. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of really, I do stuff in schools as well with IBK. There's a lot of really, the good thing is you see the really good side of children engaged in it. But I think it is in this world that's so kind of marketing, advertising everywhere, allowing you to kind of have the time to think about these things or understand them a bit more. I think a lot of schools have been cutting out a lot of the sustainability in the curriculum from the government as well. So I think education is a key part, actually, to fill that in.
Super, thank you. Any more questions for Erica?